In a lab in Nansha, Guangzhou, engineers are driving a steel nail through a battery cell. It doesn't catch fire, it doesn't vent, and it keeps working. Every battery in your phone and your car holds a flammable liquid solvent. Take it out, and the cell stops being something that can burn down a car park. Greater Bay Technology says it did that in April 2026, but that is the company describing its own test. So, ground rule for the next 10 minutes. Real engineering and heavy marketing are both in this, and I'll tell you which is which. The wall that stopped everybody else. Solid-state batteries are not a new idea, and that's the part the headlines skip. Toyota said it would put one in a car for the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Then it said 2023, then 2026. The answer now is somewhere around 2028, and last November, Toyota pushed its plans back again and paused factory construction. The reason has a name: dendrites. When you charge a cell with a lithium metal anode, the lithium doesn't plate back onto the surface evenly. It grows needles. Those needles push through the electrolyte the way a tree root lifts a paving slab, and when one reaches the other side, the cell shorts out. In a liquid cell, you can manage that chemically. In a solid one, you're asking a hard, brittle sheet to hold back a metal spike growing inside it for 10 years. That's the wall, and everybody hit it. So let's look at what these companies actually changed inside the cell. What is actually different in there? First, the electrolyte swap. This is the one everyone means when they say solid state. The flammable liquid comes out and a solid goes in, and the solids in play are not the same material as each other. Greater Bay uses what it calls a deep eutectic composite electrolyte. Chery's Rhino S series uses a sulfide electrolyte with a high nickel cathode. Dongfeng uses an oxide polymer hybrid. 3 companies, 3 chemistries, 1 move. Second, the lithium metal anode. Pull out the graphite, put in lithium metal, and you can store far more energy in the same box. That is where every 400 and 500 watt-hours per kilogram figure in this video comes from. It is also exactly where the dendrites come from. Third, contact. Liquid electrolyte soaks into every pore of an electrode. A solid sheet only touches where it touches, like 2 panes of glass pressed together. So lab cells get clamped at pressures in the tens of megapascals for their entire working life, purely to keep the layers in contact. Now you can see why a nail through the cell is the demonstration they picked. There's no solvent in there to light, which brings us to the figures. And here, I have to be careful with you. The numbers, and which of them are real. Every number I'm about to give you is a manufacturer claim. Not one of these cells is in a car you can buy. Greater Bay's A sample cells are rated 260 to 500 watt-hours per kilogram. That's a range, and the bottom of it is only modestly better than a good liquid pack. Chery's Rhino S series claims 400 on the sulfide cell and 600 on the polymer one, with over 1,500 kilometers on the CLTC cycle, which is China's own lab test and flatters every car that takes it. Chery says vehicle testing finishes in 2027. Cheng and his Golden Bell claims the same 400 and over 1,500 kilometers, with trial installations announced for this quarter and mass production in 2027. Chang'an has not said which cars. Dongfeng's cell is 350 for over 1,000 kilometers, the lowest of the 4 and the closest to a factory. For scale, the longest range electric car you can buy in America is the Lucid Air Grand Touring at 512 miles on the EPA cycle. And some of the most quoted numbers in this entire story are not solid state at all. Dongfeng's 2 megawatt charging comes off a liquid composite cell on its mock platform. Chery's 500 kilometers in 8 minutes is the Rhino E, also liquid. Greater Bay's famous 0 to 80% in 7.5 minutes was a world record certified in 2024 on a JC AION V Plus 70, 2 years before its solid-state cells existed. All 3 get printed under solid-state headlines constantly. None of them came out of a solid-state battery. Set the range claims aside for a minute, because the safety testing is the part that reads like science fiction. The cell that survives its own worst day. Here's what Greater Bay says its cells went through. A nail driven all the way through. A crush test. Thermal shock. No fire, no explosion. A lithium fire is a runaway reaction that generates its own oxygen, which is why firefighters hose a burning electric car for hours, and it still reignites in the salvage yard 3 days later. A cell that shrugs off a nail isn't a better battery. It's a different category of object. Dongfeng's figures point the same way. It says its cells held their structure at 170 degrees Celsius, which is oven temperature. And in winter testing at Mohe, the coldest inhabited town in China, it says the packs kept 72% of their capacity. None of which matters if you can't afford to build the thing. The money. So here are the numbers a thumbnail will never show you. Nobody sells these at scale, so there is no market price, only estimates. Those estimates run $400 to $800 per kilowatt hour in 2026. Lithium iron phosphate, or LFP. The chemistry in most affordable electric cars on the road runs $80 to $100. That's 4 to 8 times on the most expensive component in the vehicle. The factory side says the same thing. Dongfeng, which currently leads the manufacturing race, is building a plant rated at 0.2 gigawatt hours. Saike Power's sulfide pilot line is 0.1. Doctex has a gigawatt-hour scale facility in Tianjin. Those are pilot lines. China builds hundreds of gigawatt-hours of battery a year. It's a bakery turning out 40 loaves a day in a city that eats 1 million. Greater Bay itself, the company with the nail, installed 0.21 gigawatt-hours of battery in March 2026. That was 0.37% of the Chinese market, and 15th place. The cheap flank, meanwhile, is already selling. CATL's Naxtra sodium-ion cell does 175 for over 400 kilometers, and it's in the Chang'an Nivo A06, which CATL and Chang'an call the world's first mass-production sodium-ion passenger car. No Western car maker sells one at all. Which is why what happened in China at the start of this month matters more than any single number in this video. The line drawn on the 1st of July. On the 1st of July, 2026, a national standard for automotive solid-state batteries came into force in China. It is the first of its kind anywhere, drafted under the National Automotive Standardization Technical Committee by CATL, BYD, Gaussian, and the state research body KTRC. What it does is define the word. To be called all solid state, a cell has to hold less than 5% liquid electrolyte by mass, proven by 6 hours in a vacuum chamber at 120 degrees Celsius, while somebody measures how much mass boils off. That sounds like paperwork, and it changes how every one of these companies is allowed to advertise. For years, the industry sold packs branded semi-solid state, which are liquid cells with less liquid in them, and that phrase did enormous work. The standard deletes it. From that date, a Chinese brand either passes the vacuum test or drops the word. Mercedes drove a modified EQS from Stuttgart to Malmö on one charge in August 2025, 1,205 kilometers, with 137 kilometers still showing on arrival, using lithium metal cells from the American company Factorial Energy. Mercedes was delighted, with good reason. That was one prototype on one road, and Mercedes targets production cars by the end of the decade. China wrote the definition and started auditing against it. So that's the case for solid state, made as strongly as the evidence allows. Now the part that gets left out. 4 problems nobody has solved. First, interface resistance. Solid touching. Solid means current has to cross a boundary that gets more resistive as the cell cycles. CATL's own internal review says that's why commercialization is probably held back until 2030, and CATL makes more battery than anyone alive. Second, stack pressure. Those clamps from earlier. Silicon anode cells need 50 to 150 megapascals to keep the layers touching. In a car, the hardware doing the squeezing adds weight and cost, and it eats into the energy density that was the entire point. Third, price. That gap has to close before any of this reaches a car you would actually buy. Fourth, scale. Saike Power has already slipped its machine testing to the last months of 2026, and that's a 0.1 gigawatt hour line. Nobody has built these cells by the million yet. And then there's Ouyang Mingao. the Tsinghua academician, who is probably China's most quoted battery scientist. His estimate for solid-state reaching 1% of the market is 5 to 10 years. He also says it is not absolutely safe. He said that in March, in China, about Chinese batteries. So, step back. A cell with no liquid in it took a nail and didn't burn. The wall that stopped Toyota for a decade has a name, and it's still standing. 4 companies are claiming 4 chemistries and 4 different numbers. 3 of the most quoted figures belong to liquid batteries. The plants are pilot lines. The price is multiples of LFP. And China has now written a legal definition of the word and started testing against it. All of that is true at the same time, which is what the middle of a technology looks like. Making these takes a while, so if you want the next one, subscribe. Chang'an's Q3 filing lands in the next few weeks, and this story is not close to finished.